Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below, and if you're looking for my best bet, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games in Major League Baseball for Wednesday. First up, it's the Houston Astros taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're going to see Jose Urquidy and Rich Hill as the projected starters. I got to say, this is a mismatch on paper in the pitching matchup, as although I'm not the biggest fan of Jose Urquidy's game, I got to give him credit. He's pitching well to start the 2023 season. His last start against the Minnesota Twins, although he gave up a good amount of base hits, he went 5 1/3 innings with 6 strikeouts and only 1 earned run allowed. Now, that game ended up being a 3-2 loss for the Astros in the end, but I do think the Astros bats will be able to back up Urquidy a lot more in this game, facing Rich Hill, who is struggling to start his season with his new team. He struggled against the White Sox last time out, giving up 7 earned runs and 3 home runs in that game in only 4 innings of work. Gave up 2 home runs the previous start against the Cincinnati Reds. So he's now given up 10 earned runs in 9 innings, so more runs than innings pitched, 5 home runs along the way. And now you're facing a Houston Astros lineup that's one of the best lineups in baseball against left-handed pitching to start this season. They were strong against lefties last year as well. So to me, you add all that up, this is a really nightmare matchup for Rich Hill and the Pirates pitching staff. Give me the Houston Astros. I'm going to lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we have the New York Yankees taking on the Cleveland Guardians. No official lineup for this game, as the Guardians have not announced a starter, but we should see Clark Schmidt on the other end for the New York Yankees. And Clark Schmidt has struggled in his first 2 outings with the Yankees in the starting pitching role. We saw him give up 3 earned runs and 2 homers against the San Francisco Giants in 3 1/3 in his first start, and then against the Orioles, giving up 4 earned runs, 5 base hits in 3 1/3, as well as 3 walks in that game. His control has been off, his location has been off, and it's really tough to back him in this spot against the Guardians team. It's really solid against right-handed pitching. They do a great job of limiting strikeouts. They put the ball in play. They will be able to work a lot of pitch counts and get Clark Schmidt's pitch count up early in this game. And, he's not really a pitcher that goes deep into games to begin with. So, to me, we have to see who the Guardians go with on the mound. That's definitely going to dictate where the money line price goes for this game. But right now, I'm leaning towards the Cleveland Guardians on the money line. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Minnesota Twins. Lucas Giolito and Sonny Gray are your projected starters. Now, oftentimes when there's a starting pitcher that I do think is going to have a good season, if they're coming off a bad start, I'll look to back them in their next outing because we're usually going to be able to get a really good price on them. But this is just not one of those cases. Even though I do think Lucas Giolito is a lot better than what we've seen to start the year, I just can't trust him, especially against Sonny Gray on the other side in the Minnesota Twins. Lucas Giolito last start against the Pittsburgh Pirates, 4 innings, 12 base hits, 7 earned runs, 2 home runs. He was just not sharp at all in that game, giving up a lot of pitches right down the middle. The Pirates took advantage of almost every single mistake that Giolito made in that game, and that's why, even though the White Sox scored, I think, 7 runs in the first 5 innings of that one, they still lost the game 13-9 in the end. And on the other side, Sonny Gray, he looked like vintage Sonny Gray in his last start, as he was able to go deep in that game, 7 innings with 13 strikeouts against the Houston Astros of all teams. Not an easy team to strike out, even against a righty, and he only gave up 1 earned run in that game, 4 base hits and 1 walk. So one of the best starts Sonny Gray's had really in his career. Coming off that start, he pitched well in his first outing too against the Royals, only giving up 3 base hits in 5 innings with no earned runs. So, for me, Sonny Gray's in much better form than Lucas Giolito. I think the Twins bats can go toe-to-toe with the White Sox. The bullpen has certainly been better to start the season. So give me the Minnesota Twins here on the money line. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the New York Mets. We're going to see Blake Snell and Tyler McGill as the projected starters in this one. Tyler McGill, he's off to a good start this season, but he has faced the Miami Marlins twice to start the year, so I do expect there to be some regression in his game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him give up a few runs in this one early on. But Blake Snell on the other side is really tough to trust in his first few outings of any season. He's traditionally a slow starter, and we've already seen it this year where his control has been off. We saw it in his last start against the Braves where he went 3 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 base hits, a home run, 4 earned runs, and 4 walks, so a lot of base runners, only 2 strikeouts, and he's facing a New York Mets team that, yes, hasn't traditionally been very strong against lefties this season or last year, but they're a team that works a lot of counts. They will get on base via the walk. They will take hit by pitches. They will up a pitcher's pitch count really early in games. And against Blake Snell last year, we saw the same thing against the Mets where he pitched 9 innings against the Mets. He had a 4.00 ERA, but he gave up 11 base hits, 5 total runs, 5 walks, and he only had 9 strikeouts. Opponent's batting average of .297. So I think the Mets could get to Blake Snell early in this game, and it should be enough for a Mets win in the end. So give me the New York Mets here on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Chicago Cubs. We're going to see Logan Gilbert and Marcus Stroman on the mound for this one. Should be a pretty good pitching matchup, even though the wind has been blowing out to center field the last couple of days at Wrigley. Now, Marcus Stroman last year struggled at Wrigley Field, but to start this season, 12 innings at Wrigley in his first 2 starts, no earned runs with 14 strikeouts, only 5 base hits allowed. He has been razor sharp to start the season, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go 5-6 strong innings in this game either. But the only problem is I think Logan Gilbert can go toe-to-toe with Stroman in this game. Logan Gilbert, I had my concerns with this game going into the season, but he's pitching pretty well. I mean, 10 innings with 13 strikeouts, a nice ERA at 3.6 is not too bad against the Guardians in both of those games. Not easy facing the same team twice. And I do think that, if this game is tied or close score late, I trust the Mariners lineup a little bit more, and I trust their bullpen a lot more in a game like this, even though the Cubs got that extra innings win in the first game of this series. I think the Mariners have the better bullpen, so for me, I'm going to take the Seattle Mariners at a really good price on the money line. Next up, it's the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Colorado Rockies. We're going to see Jack Flaherty and Jose Urena as the starters in this one. Jack Flaherty's pitched well against the Rockies in his career thus far, a sub-2 ERA against Colorado, but the only problem is none of those starts were at Coors Field. This is his first start at Coors, and we know it's the most hitter-friendly ballpark in baseball. It's why we see double-digit totals in every game at the stadium. It's really tough usually for pitchers in their first starts or the first few starts at Coors Field, and I could certainly see Jack Flaherty struggling, especially when you look at the fact that he's had big issues with his control to start the season. He's only had 10 innings of work this year. He's got a nice ERA at 1.8, but that's a little bit deceiving. He's had 13 walks allowed, 7 walks in his first start, 6 walks in the next one, with only 7 strikeouts to go with it. I do think if you're giving up all those free passes at Coors Field, it's a recipe for disaster. So I do think the Rockies could get to him for a few runs early. And then Jose Urena on the other side, he's only had 5 innings of work, but he's already given up 8 earned runs with 3 home runs. He has not been sharp this season. His control is off. He has 7 walks to 1 strikeout, a 7-to-1 ratio walk to strikeout. That's not going to get it done at Coors Field, especially against the St. Louis Cardinals lineup. Give me the over in a Cardinals-Rockies game at Coors Field. Next up, it's the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to see Brandon Woodruff and Dre Jameson on the mound in this one. I am concerned a little bit with Dre Jameson's control in a game like this. He has pitched out of the bullpen so far this season. This is his first start of the year. Don't expect him to go too deep into the game, and that's because his pitch count usually can get up there. And when he's walking a lot of batters, we've seen the strikeouts from him this year. He's gone 8 1/3 innings with 8 strikeouts, but also 5 walks and 2 home runs. So I do think the Brewers could be able to take advantage of that early on in this game. And Brandon Woodruff on the other side, he has been razor sharp this season. I know Corbin Burns struggled in his first few outings, but Brandon Woodruff, it's 11 1/3 innings pitched with only 1 earned run, 12 strikeouts. He is doing his job right now, and he's facing some tough teams in the Cubs and Cardinals to start the year. I know the Diamondbacks are a really fun team to watch, and they have been a valuable team thus far, but I just don't love this matchup for them. So give me the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm going to take them on the money line. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Edward Cabrera and Zach Wheeler are your starters. Now, I just don't trust this Marlins offense enough to take a chance with them in this game. I think Edward Cabrera's got a lot of potential, but he's also had some issues with his control. He's walking a lot of batters, just like Jack Flaherty, 13 walks to start the season, but his is only 6 2/3 innings of work. And both of those games were against the New York Mets, who I mentioned, they're a team that does a great job at drawing those walks and taking a lot of pitches to begin with. But even still, we saw the Philadelphia Phillies put up 15 runs in the first game in this series. And Zach Wheeler, although he struggled in his first outing, he really sharpened up in his next one, going 5 1/3, giving up only 2 earned runs with 5 strikeouts and a 5-2 win over the Cincinnati Reds. This is a game where the Phillies offense is in much better place right now. I trust Zach Wheeler a lot more on the mound, and the bullpen, I think the Phillies have the much better bullpen. So give me the Philadelphia Phillies on the run line until I see something different with this Marlins offense. Next up, it's the Washington Nationals taking on the Los Angeles Angels. No official lineup for this game right now, so we could see a pitching change, but it looks like Mackenzie Gore and Griffin Canning are your projected starters. Now, Griffin Canning pitched in 2021 with the Angels. He struggled that season with a 5.6 ERA and a not much better 5.48 FIP. And really, in his career, he's about a strikeout per inning guy, but the big thing that's hurt him is the home runs and the walks. 1.5 home runs per nine, 3.5 walks per nine. Those are well below league average. So, in spring training, though, some promising signs from Griffin Canning. He went 13 and 2/3 innings with 13 strikeouts, only one home run, and only 3 walks. So a 1.32 ERA, you'll take that all day long if you're Griffin Canning. And against the Nationals here, a team is definitely improving offensively, but I still think one of the weaker lineups in the National League. This looks to be a decent spot for Canning to get his first start back at the Major League level after being injured and missing the season last year. Now, Mackenzie Gore on the other side is pitching well for the Nationals. His first 11 1/3 innings with 12 strikeouts, only 3 earned runs, gives him a 2.38 ERA. And last start, he pitched at Coors Field, so not an easy place to pitch for a lefty, that's for sure. But he provided 6 innings, 2-run ball with 6 Ks for the Nationals in their 10-5 win. To me, I see a lower scoring game in the first 5 innings. I don't trust either of these bullpens, so I'm just going to take the under in the first 5 innings. Next up, it's the Oakland Athletics taking on the Baltimore Orioles. We're going to see Ken Waldichuk and Dean Kramer as the starters in this one. Now, although Dean Kramer has not been sharp to start the season, I don't trust Waldichuk on the road here against an Orioles lineup that's been so good against lefties to start the season. Dean Kramer has faced some tough lineups and played in tough games against the Red Sox and the Yankees, 2 of the better lineups in the American League. Now you're facing the Oakland Athletics, who have big issues offensively. And like I said, Ken Waldichuk on the other side, he has not been sharp this season. He's 0-2 with a 14.54 ERA. I think he has a ton of potential, but he's given up a lot of home runs, 7 home runs in 8 2/3 innings of work, 7 strikeouts to go with it, with 4 walks as well, and 17 base hits. Just not going to get it done against this Orioles team at Camden Yards. So give me the Baltimore Orioles. I'm going to lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, it's the Boston Red Sox taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Chris Sale and Zach Eflin are your starters in this one. Chris Sale's had some issues with his control to start the season. We saw in his last start against the Detroit Tigers, he walked the first 2 batters of the game on 8 pitches, 8-0 in terms of the walk-to-strike ratio. And, although he was able to settle down and put together 5 decent innings, only giving up, earning 7 strikeouts, only giving up 3 earned runs, he still gave up a home run in that game with 3 walks and 4 base hits. And I do think that was against the Detroit Tigers, one of the weaker lineups in the American League. Now you're facing a red-hot Tampa Bay Rays lineup, but against lefties, they are 4th or 3rd in baseball in team OPS and number 1 in the league in isolated power. They may not earn a lot of walks at the plate, but they also limit strikeouts. So I do think that the Rays could certainly get to Chris Sale early in this one. Zach Eflin's not my favorite starter to back, but he's 2-0 right now with a 3.27 ERA. He's earning strikeouts, 12 Ks, and 11 innings of work. His last start against the Oakland A's gave up a lot of base hits in that game, also a home run. So I could certainly see the Red Sox getting to him for a few runs, but I just think the Rays lineup and their bullpen are red hot right now. I got to take the Tampa Bay Rays in a game like this. So give me Tampa Bay on the money line at a pretty good price. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Detroit Tigers. We're going to see Kevin Gausman and Eduardo Rodriguez on the mound in this one. Now, the Blue Jays are off to a slow start against left-handed pitching this season offensively. They're 19th in the league in team OPS, and they're 23rd in isolated power. But last year, this was a good lineup against lefties, especially in the final 2 months of the season, where they were top 10 in both team OPS and isolated power. And it makes sense because this is a Blue Jays team. It's got a lot of righty bats in the lineup. Vladdy Jr., Bo Bichette, George Springer, Matt Chapman, Alejandro Kirk. So, I do expect the Blue Jays to sharpen up against lefties, and this could be one of those spots where they have a little bit of a breakout game against the southpaw, as Eduardo Rodriguez is 0-2 with a 6.3 ERA. His last start against the Astros, 4 2/3 innings, 6 base hits, 4 earned runs, and 2 homers, only 1 strikeout in that game. And Kevin Gausman on the other side has been so good to start the season, similar to last year where he was really good at the beginning of the year. Hasn't given up a single earned run this season. He's got 14 strikeouts in 12 innings of work, no home runs allowed, and only 3 walks allowed. Give me the Toronto Blue Jays here on the run line. Next up, it's the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Atlanta Braves with Spencer Strider and Hunter Greene as the starters. There's no doubting Spencer Strider's off to a great start to the season with a 2.45 ERA, 18 strikeouts, and 11 innings of work, coming off a start with 9 strikeouts against the Padres. But I do think the Reds are a little bit undervalued in a spot like this with Hunter Greene on the mound. Last year, we know Greene was a lot better on the road than he was at Great American Ballpark, which makes sense since Great American is one of the more hitter-friendly parks in baseball. And Hunter Greene, his first road start of this season, went 4 2/3 innings, only giving up 2 earned runs with 5 strikeouts against the Philadelphia Phillies. I think Green does enough in this game to keep his Reds competitive. And on the other side, Cincinnati Reds, their lineup has actually been pretty decent against righties to start the year. They're top 10 in both team OPS and isolated power against those right-handers. And although they have a pretty high strikeout rate, and I could see him earning a lot of strikeouts in this one against Strider, I think they do enough offensively to at least cover the run line. Who knows, maybe even win the game outright, getting a really good price on that money line. So I'll sprinkle a little bit on the money line, but take the Cincinnati Reds plus the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Texas Rangers. We're going to see Brad Keller and Nathan Eovaldi on the mound in this one. Now, Brad Keller's off to a good start this year with a 2.61 ERA, but only 9 strikeouts in 10 1/3 innings with 7 walks allowed to go with it. Sure, Brad Keller's keeping the ball on the ground, but he's not limiting sharp contact. He's in the bottom 26th percentile in average exit velocity, bottom 13th in hard hit percentage. Sure, he's avoiding barrels, but he's walking a lot of batters, not earning those strikeouts, and still giving up sharp contact. Now you're facing a Rangers lineup who we saw in the first game of the series against Zach Greinke put up a ton of runs early. They scored 11 runs in the game while it was all said and done. I don't trust Brad Keller or the Royals bullpen in a game like this. I think Nathan Eovaldi is the far better option on the mound, and he's facing a pretty weak Royals lineup. So give me the Texas Rangers here. I expect another comfortable victory at home. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the San Francisco Giants. We're going to see Alex Cobb and Clayton Kershaw on the mound in this one. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a big fan of Alex Cobb's game, and he's pitched well so far this year in his first 10 2/3 innings with 12 strikeouts. He's got a 2.53 ERA, only 1 walk allowed, but his team doesn't really do him any favors offensively in terms of run support or defensively in the field. They made a lot of mistakes last year and even this year to start the year defensively, so I do worry about that with a pitcher like Alex Cobb, who kind of relies on his defense to make some plays. And we saw last year against the Dodgers, Alex Cobb did not fare too well against LAD. Not many pitchers did overall, but against the Dodgers in the 21 2/3 innings he faced them in, giving up 23 base hits, 12 earned runs, good for a 4.98 ERA. He only had 21 strikeouts, so a little bit below where his strikeouts per 9 was, and 11 walks allowed in those innings also. So I could see the Dodgers getting to Cobb, even though only for 3 to 4 runs is enough, because I think Clayton Kershaw is going to have a strong outing facing a Giants lineup that's struggling against lefties to start the season. They're second worst in baseball on team OPS against lefties in 2023 thus far, and I just think Kershaw, although he's coming off a rough start against the Diamondbacks, it was a tough spot to be in facing the same team twice in less than a week. So I think the Giants are a much better matchup for Kershaw. I think he puts together a strong outing. So give me the Los Angeles Dodgers here on the money line. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.